Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the Art Department podcast. It's me again, Urschel here in the studio, and Emmanuel Shiu on the other side of the world. Currently, everything is in flames and it's a really crazy time. But we'll try to spread some positive thoughts, and for that occasion, we want to share some of our favorite experiences while working as a concept designer in the entertainment industry. So I think each of us is going to share an interesting story that we have working on certain projects, meeting certain people, and what we particularly liked about that job, and which kind of leads us to some of the experiences that we want to share with other people. And I think today I'm going to start it off. And as you can see in the background, it's already a different image from the usual. So I know a lot of you have been saying that you want to see some new images. So also as a note for all the listeners who join us on Spotify and Apple and Google Podcasts and Overcast and all the other sources where we have our audio feed, I think this is a good episode to check out our YouTube stream, because we're going to go through a lot of visuals here. We'll still try to make the episode enjoyable for the audio listeners, but if you want to get the most out of it, please have a look at our YouTube. So I want to talk about my favorite experience so far. I think I have some currently that also qualifies as a really nice project, but so looking back, of course, we always like to complain about the bad experiences, but there have been some good ones as well. And the one I want to talk about is actually the live action Ghost in the Shell movie that I worked on in a maybe quite unusual way, not the common way of like you getting a call from the PD, from the production designer. It's like, hey, I want to work with you, and then you start working and that's it. But it was quite a strange one. So I want to actually track back a little bit before that, and actually to a job you got me as well. So I think it was in 2014 that I got a call by a production designer, James Chinland, and I think he's doing the Batman, the new Batman Robert Pattinson movie, and I mean he's a famous guy. He's a great guy, and it was for a sci-fi show with Warner Brothers. It was not green lit, so they were just doing some location scouting in Hong Kong, and I think also Macau. And I mean the world that they were creating was very reminiscent of Ghost in the Shell, but it was not actually Ghost in the Shell. It was based on a different novel about a robotic girl called the Juliet. And it was briefly on IMDb, and then it didn't end up getting greenlit. It was with Rupert Sanders, though, the director of Ghost in the Shell. So while that fell through, later on it was confirmed that he was going to do Ghost in the Shell. And I didn't get hired on that show directly by the production designer. But there was also another instance where I was working with Paramount with the job that you got me through. I think you recommended me and some friends to work on some marketing material for Terminator Genesis.
Oh, right.
So I think we each did like an image.
Yeah.
I think you, Pat, and myself and somebody else. And it was fun. And that kind of got me in contact with the marketing department at Paramount. And then sometime later, they were trying to do different kind of campaigns for their upcoming movies. And one of them was Ghost in the Shell. And the guy who was heading the department, he was actually a Kiwi, a New Zealander living in LA. And he somehow found my stuff, and he maybe was going through the contacts he had from before, and was asking if I would want to join this new marketing campaign. And that was quite interesting, because I don't think anybody had done anything like this before. So they were taking different artists with different styles to create their version of like a Ghost in the Shell themed, like inspired piece. So honestly, I mean, I didn't ask, but I had no idea how they thought I was going to be a good fit.
But it was already a marketing thing,
It was a
like at that
marketing.
point.
They were kind of thinking about various areas of marketing. So
So had Ghost in the Shell already started?
no. I mean, the production had started, but they didn't have any trailers. I think at that point it was confirmed that Scarlett Johansson was going to be the lead, but nothing else was out there. I mean,
Oh, that's early for marketing, isn't
that
it?
was very early. It was a very unusual thing, and I don't know if they ever did anything since then in that style. But the guy who was heading it, he was quite interested in doing something experimental, trying to use social media. So the point was to get all these artists to do different things, and then basically uploaded, like closer to the release of the movie, uploaded as kind of our own creation, inspired by, but actually funded by Paramount. So it was pretty cool. And
So open brief.
completely open brief. We could do whatever we wanted, and it was paid and everything. It was great.
Wow.
And but the thing was like, what was attached to the email was like, okay, in order to do this, we want to fly you out to Wellington, to New Zealand, where they shot the movie, because they just started shooting it. And I was like, this sounds like a scam, because I've never like heard of anything happen.
To fly there for what reason?
To get inspired by the production and the production artwork and everything, because that's where where they had that's where they were shooting the movie, right? The director was there and everything, and Scarlett Johansson was there, and I was like,
tell me you went.
Sure, of course I did. I mean, it was actually very tricky because my kids were only 4 months old at that point, and we were all like dying of just the amount of work it is to have 4-month-old twins, but luckily my mother-in-law was there. And was it when they were 4 months old? I think so, yeah. And it was difficult. It was a difficult decision, but I mean, my wife said like, you need to go, right, to experience that.
You hadn't done work
for the movie? No, not at all.
Nothing.
And
they just said, in order to start, fly out to Wellington to get inspired.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going. Okay, I was trying to understand that.
Not bad, right? So I was like,
no,
sounds okay, right? And then we got the plane ticket and everything, and the instructions in which hotel, and it was like no expense spared, like per diem, 5-star hotel. Everything covered, and I'm like, okay, this sounds pretty good. So a couple of weeks later, I'm in a plane flying to Brisbane and then Wellington, and I had at this point I had no idea who else was there, who else is going to come. They didn't tell me anything. They just said, a couple of other artists. So in the end, it turned out that there were a couple, like, guys from all over: New York, Los Angeles, Taiwan, Indonesia. They had artists, yeah. But so
how many total?
I think it was 5 or 6. And the other guys were the other guys had a very distinct style, and the other guys had like a very strong social media following. So I was we were comparing like Instagram profiles, and this one girl who does these amazing like pastel color portraits has like 200,000 followers or whatever, and I'm like at that point I had like 1,000 or 500 or something like that, and I'm like, what am I doing here? I had no idea.
It's not all about
it's not all about that. I honestly still don't understand why they wanted me, because everybody else had a very distinct style, man. But I was the only one who just actually worked in movies. So my work was like not much different than.
So everybody else wasn't from the industry.
Not at all. They were all illustrators. One guy did like these strange 80s style like animatics, like looping videos on Twitter. and was really popular because of that. But nobody worked in the industry at all. So I was the only one who's actually touched video games and movies before. But okay, I mean, you don't question it. You enjoy it, right?
No,
While you're there.
yeah. No,
So
not especially not when it's paid.
yeah, everything was amazing. And I think, and then they actually also invited Maciej and Ash Thorpe, because these guys actually worked on it, and kind of as a reward, they invited them as well to be on set. Then they kind of like put it together, but these guys were actually not part of the marketing scheme. So they kind of had a different program from us. And then the rest of the stay was kind of like a really interesting kind of like a paid vacation kind of thing. So I just wanted to, in the background, I have some images. So
Well, hold on. How long was the whole stay?
I think 3 or 4 days, or 3 or 4 nights.
3 or 4 days. And what did you do there?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. So I'm going to show you some images, and I show you some photos as well. I actually have some of the sketches and images I did for the marketing campaign. So, I mean, based on part of the event, and the where I couldn't take pictures of was, of course, when we were actually going to Weta. So we had a 2-part visitation of first the movie production and then Weta Digital. So the first part, the Weta workshop, which actually has the sound stages and everything. So we went on the sound stage. We went to see the sets they build, which was crazy. And then we also saw we saw the vehicles and the sets they built. We actually saw part of the shooting. So the pyrotechnics.
Oh, so they were shooting. Okay.
Yeah, they were shooting. So we didn't get to see Scarlett, unfortunately, but we saw her stunt double, and they were doing a scene where she's standing on top of the tank and kind of shooting into it, like the end boss fight, and where she like rips open the hatch to the tank and kind of shoots inside. We saw that one, and then some pyrotechnics, the second unit, what they were shooting. They were explaining a lot of just how it works, and to see that is crazy. And then we could actually see the sets up close and touch it, and it was really strange.
Did you break anything?
Yeah, no. But it was funny because I mean they had like interesting experience was there was like some little like Asian looking pagoda, because they had built part of Hong Kong in New Zealand, and so some of the wooden buildings, and I'm like, this looks so real. And then I go up close to like touch it, and it's like styrofoam. And I'm like you step 1 meter away, it looks like wood. You go up really up close, you touch it, it's styrofoam. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then we actually saw all the other stuff. We saw the weapons they manufactured. So they had like a specialist for weapons, and we could hold the weapons. That was really crazy. We saw all the vehicles they built, the vehicle workshop. We saw, and I couldn't take any pictures. That was all confidential. And funnily enough, they invited a photographer to be part of it and to document it. But from what I heard, she never got to release the pictures. So I have no idea. And then we saw the costume department, and that was amazing. Like just the thousands of costumes they made. And then we went to Weta Digital as well to see the process of designing the thing, the 3D printed skeletons and stuff they did. And just like we also got the general tourist tour with the history of Weta and all the other stuff. They have so many props and miniatures from like Lord of the Rings. So they made like a mini museum out of it, which was amazing to see in general. Just as a film fan, it's just amazing to be there. So after that, we went home to make the images, and we saw the concept art produced for the movie. So that's kind of where I have that
first
stuff.
time.
Yeah,
for the concept art.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, at that point, everything was under wraps, and some of the sketches I did, basically, I was hired to do 2 images, and so I did a couple of sketches, loose sketches at first, and I wanted to.
Which are the loose sketches? These?
Yeah, the ones I'm showing right now are like the loose sketches, and they kind of wanted to hit a vibe. I mean, I wanted to bring some of the movie vibe into it, so that's why I made it a bit more Hong Kong. The 1995 movie vibe.
Just to interrupt you for a second,
Yeah.
did you how did you prepare? Did you watch the anime? Did you talk to the director? Oh, did you meet the
No,
director?
no, no, no. We just saw him in the background because they were shooting,
Ah,
so
okay,
we were
okay,
not
okay.
really talking to him. We met the producer though, and he was sharing a lot about the background and the ideas. We met some, I think, the director of photography.
Mm,
So some of the key people behind it we did meet, but not the director. We just could admire him from afar.
mm,
So and it they were very intent on hitting that vibe that they wanted to, that the movie had, and not the one they not the 1995 movie, because
the anime, not
the
the
anime,
anime.
yeah, because the intent was um for it to be its own thing.
Mm,
And so some of the more graphic like images like this one was not kind of what they wanted to go for. um
mm-hmm.
Even though I kind of, and this was one of the key scenes that I kind of mixed up into something more, into something different, because the fight happens in this intersection that really exists in Hong Kong. So I made like a more inspirational image out of that, and then I think the final images people that follow me already know. So I did this kind of like alleyway, which is kind of my nod to the original. So
Mm-hmm.
they
Mm-hmm.
were happy to use that. And also this other image, which I think people also know. And for me, it's
Yeah,
like
just
a,
this one. Yeah.
I mean, it's an intersection in Hong Kong, which I kind of enlarged, but then I was putting a lot of buildings from Japan into it, because
Mm-hmm.
it is a hybrid in the final movie. It's a hybrid of Tokyo and Hong Kong and some other metropolis
Sure,
in
sure.
Asia. Um, and then I wanted to share some of the behind the scenes images, which I've not shown anyone.
So
But I
is
mean,
this the
there's
crew? Is this the
that's
crew
so
that
these
was
are all the artists. That is
uh,
of course Mache and Ash, and then these are all the other artists from, again, the UK, US, Taiwan, Indonesia, and the guy who was heading the marketing department. You can see my cursor. That's him here. And that was really a fun time. And yeah, that was just us being like shown around, like kind of like on a tourist trail, which was
mm,
amazing. So this was also my first time to New Zealand, um, and just some random images of I don't know, the I have nothing special there, but it's just the kind of areas where we went around, and then went to some like nature conservation area with rainforests. And I mean, just to give you an idea of what we did. So besides the studio visits, they had a full program for us and brought us around to like nice lunch places,
mm.
learn something about New Zealand, and share like how amazing it is there, right? So I mean, that was cool. And then some shoddy images of out of the bus, and then we went to like some maybe something more that feels like um, something out of Lord of the Rings. Lots of sheep
Yeah,
there.
well, I mean,
I
Lord of
mean,
the
the
Rings is New
landscape, I didn't
Zealand.
see much. We didn't have time to go outside of Wellington, of course, but there was so much amazing nature around there. And then, like, we went, like, on the last day, I think we went to this, like, fantastic dinner place, which was at the edge of a cliff. And then we went there for, like, amazing dinner, and then just this amazing sunset. And I mean, you really feel it. You're at the end of the world, because you look out to the sea and there's nothing, and it's just this crazy sunset. um, and So yeah, that was, I mean, at that point I was like, I don't care about the movie. I'm just here to enjoy this, right? And yeah,
Mhm.
way too many images of sunsets, because it was
Good
crazy.
reference.
Yeah, good reference images, right? So it looks quite unreal there, to be honest. Um, and I mean, at that point, I was like, I don't care about the movie. I'm just here to enjoy this. And it was, at that point, it was already an amazing experience with just
Hmm.
the country
Hmm.
itself, and being able to see the production. I'm like, I don't need to be involved in anything else. But I mean, I got back home and then produced the images, and they were really happy with it. I got paid for that as well on top of the trip. Um, and at that point, I was like, yay, this is fun. Um, this was one of the most unique and fun experiences because I don't think they do this usually.
Yeah, that's pretty rare,
Right.
fly you out there.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it has never happened since, and I haven't heard from anybody since that this has been done to them. And I mean, that was amazing already. But then a couple of weeks later, I actually got a call from MPC for working on the movie again. And I mean, they didn't know that I was on the project before. They didn't know I was in New Zealand. So when I told the art director, he's like, "Oh shit! I mean, I guess we got the right guy then, so to speak." Because I wasn't recommended by anyone, and at that point, the marketing art had not been released yet. So nobody knew that I was involved in that respect. So and the shooting was done, the shooting was done, and the problem was that there were a lot of areas which hadn't been resolved yet. So usually once you get involved at that stage, it's very much a VFX kind of thing. But what was kind of unique about that was that there was still a lot of stuff to design, which they hadn't really figured out yet. Mostly the look of the city. I mean, they did have plates of like aerial photography of Hong Kong that they did, and just general photography in Hong Kong. And but they hadn't done any integration of the miniatures that Weta built, or the VFX, of course, were part of it as well. But there was a lot to figure out. So I mean, it wasn't already enough that I went to New Zealand and did this marketing stuff. So now I was actually doing more on the movie, which was fun. So at that point, I was like,
"Damn, look at that!"
I've seen a lot of the, and I mean the images I'm showing is kind of a bit more. I mean, I haven't shown these before, and they're more like the work in progress of what I did for the final images.
Sorry, when you want to just give a quick, like how, is this all just like Photoshop? Is there some 3D in this?
Oh yeah, I'll share that as well. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm showing the images, and I wanted to show a little bit of what it was really like working on it. And one of the things I want to say in the beginning is that, so I saw the concept art, and I mean the concept art is fine, and but I was actually very disappointed in the visual direction that the movie was taken to, which was very much like a Blade Runner-ish kind of city, and not really embracing too much of the 1995 movie. I mean, the thing is, right, there was people in our industry have a strong attachment to that movie because it's very visually, right? The anime. It's very visually distinct, and even that thing itself is a big departure on the visuals of the manga it is based on. It's that director's very unique take, because the director was not the author of the book. So it was his very unique take on that product, but it actually had it's in many ways more ingrained into people's mind than the original manga is, at least for people I think in the West, because that was really the first major like Ghost in the Shell product that made it over into the West. And only after that, I think people were aware that it was actually based on something different. But anyway, so I mean, that's why I had a strong, and there were actually concepts of exploring a style closer to the 1995 anime. But then they decided to go in a different direction. And I didn't like that direction, to be honest, right? And I mean, in the end,
direction that they ultimately went with.
And the one that I had to follow. So it's kind of like, I mean, I don't know, a word of caution that, yes, in our days, there's going to be a lot of remakes of franchises that we grew up with and that we have sometimes a weird nostalgia for. That is not always like, oh, this is like the best thing ever, but because we grew up with it, we have like some attachment to it. So I don't know if you talk about like Blade Runner or Dune, for which the trailer just came out. And and they all have versions in the 80s and 70s that we grew up with and that we do like for whatever reason. And we don't always agree with the visual direction or the new direction that directors take. And I didn't really like this one, but nevertheless, I had to follow it, right? And had to make the best out of it. And that's just how it goes, I think. And the older you get, the more you will see your childhood nostalgia ripped to pieces, and that's part of the job we have to do. And I mean, look at Star Wars, or look at all these other things and how they change. And but anyway, so I produced. We had a lot of plates that we needed to beef up. So this one was based on an aerial photograph of Hong Kong, and the problem was that it was very low resolution. Like, we didn't get anything super high res from them. It was like maybe like 720p. It had watermarks all over it. So I mean, we had to take the basic perspective, but then we had to pretty much replace everything. And then they had all these like miniatures that Weta built, so we had to put these on top. So these are some of the miniature buildings for, I mean, you have to kind of reassemble new buildings because they just took some snapshots in the workshop. They didn't really make full 3D scans of it. So none of this work is really 3D. It's all 2D photo bashing. And of course, like quick, like multiple iterations per day. So there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if these are necessarily in order, probably not. But there was just a lot of exploring of different areas of how this can work. And they had this idea of these like solid holograms that are kind of voxel LiDAR clouds that you can walk through and interact with, but that are still supposed to be holographs. And I think they're very prominently featured in the movie in the end. So it was about just exploring how these fit in, and I don't think these are necessarily in order again, but it's a lot of iteration and changing of holograms and exploring how it could look like. And I mean, we didn't just, I mean, the point is we didn't just arrive at the final like right away. There's a lot of different things you need to explore for them to make up their mind, right? And it was a bit hampered by the fact that I think there were some issues with the production of the director not agreeing with the visual effects supervisor or whatever. I don't know. But that just kind of makes it more difficult to find the direction because everybody has kind of their own ideas on, and maybe one person comes more from a visual point of view, the other guy comes more from a practical, technical point of view of like, okay, this is doable in the time frame we have. So please don't go crazy, but let's focus on this. And then the director comes and like says, no, I want it to look this way. And then if you get caught in the middle of that, it can be difficult, right? Because you have to, one day you get that, one day you get that direction, and you kind of have to cater to everyone. And I mean,
it's a fine line.
Yeah, I mean, bloody hell, like dogs on top of buildings. But I'm like, whatever, right? And I mean, went through so many iterations of placements and then there's a different image. But I mean, I don't know. I don't think this is the final. I don't think there was a final. Everything in the end just helped to inform how the shot would look like in the end. Here's some other thing. I think she was this road and the stunt woman on the bike and the guy were kind of shot, and then everything above, like slightly above her head, was going to be. I mean, it was a different background of, I think, Hong Kong or whatever, or New Zealand where they shot it, but all the rest is a complete photo bashing replacement of what they could be, right? And again, like, I mean, how do these signs look like? How does the city look like, right? What kind of augmentation can we do of street signs and the mood of the image and it's just lots and lots of variations, and that is something you will encounter if you work for VFX houses. It's
lots
just
of versions.
Lots of versions because before they want to commit to something, right, they just need lots and lots and lots and lots of stuff. And it's not always the most sexy work, because you notice that the city in the background never changes. It's just various combinations of placements and augmentations, and focusing on all the things that they can add and post. And it's just it's just endless amount of variations. I don't even want to spend too much time on each of those because it's boring. But that's how it goes, right? And then we also had full CG sequences that we went through for some kind of sequence that was going to be that didn't exist, that they didn't shoot anything for, of course. So trying to figure out how she's entering some kind of, she's supposed to enter somebody's memory, like an android's memory. So we had to visualize how the entering of that would look like, and also did lots of variations of what some kind of different, like a hybrid of a kind of computerized digital realm with some sort of buildings in it. And I mean, endless amount of different variations.
This is very typical visual effects art production.
Exactly, right. And I mean, everything has to look at least a little bit different, right? From a lot more crazy to more subtle, and trying to visualize all the ideas they have. And I mean, again, this can be very draining work, because you just have to add variation on top variation. But I mean, the main point why this is my favorite project is not because of the nice dinner at the edge of a cliff in New Zealand. I mean, although that played part in it, it's about I think the people I met on this project, and it was the people who organized the trip were also, of course, super nice, but also the people I worked with at MPC turned out to be one of the nicest people I ever worked with. And despite all this stuff that was going on, I mean, I'm still working with these people now, and I'm still in contact, even not even on a work basis, but on a personal basis. I'm in contact with these people. I mean, that's really rare, and this very, I feel like often the working world is very impersonal, and you do your job and then you kind of say goodbye, and then you only reconnect if either you want a job from them or they need your help. It's not really like you build a lot of like big friendships all the time, right? That comes rarely, because everybody's busy and everybody has their own lives. But surprisingly, out of this one, I did meet some people who just I feel like I really can talk to and talk about different things. And in the background, just showing some of the taxi designs we did. I think I showed these before, but again, it's multiple iterations of whatever could work well. But I mean, again, the big thing for me out of this one was the personal relationships I could build. And just overall a very unique experience. Now, I think that experience is not very, I think, representative of what people can expect reasonably out of getting hired on this. So it is what it is, I think, and I put it away as a really unique thing that happened to me in the over the whole involvement in this project. And that's why it despite the strangeness of the project itself and my the way that I didn't like how the project turned out in the end, and while I was working on it, it still remains I think the favorite thing I worked on to this day. And so that's kind of my
awesome.
my whole story of the involvement on this project.
That's awesome. I mean, some of those marketing images at the beginning, which are some of my favorite images of yours,
Thanks.
especially on this project, were those like mainly sort of 3D photo bash or what? I mean, because those are really finessed.
Yeah, because I had a bit more time. There was no production. There was nobody breathing down your neck. It's just like, oh yeah, just take your time and do whatever you want. And I mean, we love to hear that. And it's, I mean, often it will be used in a way of like, do whatever you want, but then you will be micromanaged to death. We have all been there. But for this one, it was really like, we want you. We just want your take on it. And you can take however long you want to take on it. So
Oh.
I of course had to balance it with the amount that they had budgeted. But of course, I wanted to just do a good job. And the Ellie one is like a photo bash all the way, and the other one, at least for the overpass, I built a 3D model. And the rest is again photo bashed. But yeah, for whatever reason, I made them really high resolution and put lots of detail in it. But it was just one of those things. It's like, okay, I can just do whatever I want, and nobody's pushing me. And then you just go a little bit crazy.
So did those original marketing stuff, did they get released? Did they get
Yeah,
printed?
no, they didn't get printed. They just got released, but. They didn't want the point of the campaign was not to have it like an official release from Paramount, but more like, hey, we got invited to do this, and this is my take on it. And they honestly didn't even push it very hard. They didn't make like a huge campaign out of it, which was a bit surprising. Compared to, I mean, the money it
seeing that they spent so much on it, right?
Yeah, they spent money on the images. They spent money on bringing us all over. But you know, I mean, I'm not asking. I mean, I don't know what went down. It was a very surreal thing, and I still kind of wonder, like I don't know when. Like, it was a strange time. Actually, because I didn't sleep at all because my kids were so young and woke up at night all the time. So I was actually super happy to get like a short break so I could actually like sleep at night.
Yeah, I bet your wife wasn't too happy about that.
Well, yeah.
You left me there.
Yeah. I mean, I actually didn't want to go. I actually said like, oh, I can't do this to you, right? And she's like, just go, we'll manage. And I mean, it turned out all right, right?
But that sounds like an awesome experience, man.
Yeah, it was great. It was great.
Oh, congratulations on that. Yeah.
Thanks. Well, so okay, that was my story. So now you see, I changed the background quickly, and now let's magic, yeah. And so now let's talk a little bit about your project. I've been talking way too long anyway. So yeah, everybody recognizes, I think, the guy in the background. So we're not talking about the reboot here, right? We're talking about
this is the so I mean, you know, quickly leading up to this, I had always been trying to get into concept art and matte painting, and this was my first sort of matte painting job at the orphanage, and you know, it had been a long time coming, and I was you know, I worked pretty hard to try to get my matte painting portfolio up to skill, you know, up to stuff. And, you know, I had sort of found out about concept art, but I wasn't really quite sure, you know, what it was even. I was going in for matte painting and I wasn't really too sure, like, okay, well, concept art. Okay. So I got to the orphanage and for Hellboy, and
they hired you specifically for that.
Yeah, I turned in my portfolio for matte painting, and so the matte painting supervisor there was Brian Flora, and you know, I worked with him on my first job, you know, way back, you know, my first job ever.
That video game stuff.
Yeah, and so he was, you know, I worked with him there, and then I had, you know, reconnected with him at ILM. And then at the orphanage, he looked at my portfolio and said, okay, well, you know, why don't you join us to be one of the matte painters? And nobody knew, because the orphanage was so new at that point, which was really what was cool, because it was like just a team of people like okay, let's just do this stuff. And nobody really knew what to do. You know, everybody was new to it, you know. Nobody was experienced, really. except for like people like Brian and stuff like that. But I mean, a lot of people even in higher positions were like, "Well, this is my first time souping, but great." And but it had that energy of,
Yeah.
um, like guerrilla filmmaking. Let's do this.
Right.
Let's spend the night at the office. Let's get this done.
Cool.
There's excitement and passion with it, and it was a really good group of guys.
But
Um,
so what was that studio founded specifically to work on Hellboy? Or just was it just it
they
happened?
had been around starting on some smaller
Oh,
projects,
okay.
independent films, but this was their first big film.
Ah, okay.
First big film,
Mm.
and it was a lot of shots, and it was
Mm.
very ambitious, but I think that it was great, and
Mm.
they
Definitely.
said go for it. And we were working in the Presidio, which is sort of a older part of San Francisco,
Right.
and it was really like right next to the Golden Gate Bridge. Like we
Oh
would
yeah,
take
yeah.
our breaks and go to the bridge and
Right.
have coffee there.
It's near where ILM as well is, right?
It was, yeah, within walking distance. Yeah.
Nice, nice, nice. That's
Yeah.
a really
So,
nice
but at
area.
that time, ILM didn't even exist there. They were still in
Oh.
San Rafael. Yeah.
Oh,
This
okay.
was, I mean, if you look at the date, this is '04.
Right.
So this is 16 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And you worked on
Uh,
it probably like 2 years before that, before the movie came out,
Maybe
no? Or
about
a
a
year?
year and a half. Yeah,
Yeah,
something
yeah.
like that. So, so I was working with it, obviously even before.
Yeah.
So okay, so I went there, and it was it was great, and I was very intimidated at first because I didn't I had no experience as a
Mm.
matte painter.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
I
okay.
only I came from games, and I
Right.
only knew what I knew from my portfolio. So I went there, and I was quite intimidated, and you sit there, and everybody was like, okay, let's do this thing. And so you're going to get the sequence. And nobody really, I mean, even Brian, we were like, okay, well, because we don't really know Guillermo and how
Yeah.
he likes to work things. And this is a new company, and nobody really quite knew exactly how this was going to go down. So we were kind of experimenting, and Brian had all the matte painting experience you could ever want, obviously, and he, we. But before you could matte paint anything, that sequence that we were responsible for was the underground sequence, which
Right.
you'll see, is it hadn't been designed. It was a completely
Complete
new
blank.
thing.
Yeah.
So, before you get to any matte painting, there was the design to be done.
Oh.
So, so we were all like, okay. And me especially, I was like, okay, well, what does that mean? Like, I don't know. I mean, I just know matte painting, and even that I didn't really know.
So you had
So
no concept artists on staff at that point.
no, it was just a couple of us. It was me, Brian,
That's funny.
Christy, I think Tiffany, uh, uh, Ting, and it would just Paul, Maria. It was they were the texture painters, so it was just like it was a very small team, and that was about it.
Interesting.
And so I was like, okay, let's work on it. And so we got the brief. And we got the brief from Mike Mignola and Guillermo del Toro on the phone, which I was already like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm talking
Oh.
to them.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Because I'm like, that's like the holy,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
what the hell? And I had already bought all the Hellboys. I had read them because I wanted to understand, what I was doing. And thank God I did, because I finished reading the comics, and then I was talking to Mike Mignola already, and they were just super chill, and they say, oh yeah,
Nice.
we want the underground sequence to be kind of like this, kind of like that. Why don't you guys just give it a shot? But we gave it a shot. And basically, in the end, I basically spent the whole summer just drawing. Like I
So
filled up two
designing
sketchbooks
basically. Yeah.
of, yeah, like and I'm, this is drawing, and you'll see it. It's just like I filled up sketchbooks of drawings of this thing, and they were it was like the best summer ever because
Yeah, yeah.
I was learning how to concept and draw. So I got to thank Ruben and Paul for really sort of, they were really good artists already, and they could draw, and I was, like I said, I came from photography, so my drawings were, I would say, pretty crap. But I had ideas and I could figure stuff out. So during the summer, I just learned how to do it better.
Right, right,
And
right.
they really helped out a lot. So I was like, okay, all right. So this scene is this underground scene where they have to cross the bridge, and there's this big hammer that comes crashing down, and then action happens, and then Hellboy goes on his way. So that's the sequence, and so yeah, if you can forward
Oh, yeah.
one slide. So here comes my crappy drawings, and um, but it informs. I mean, this is just one of like hundreds, and it's all just trying to figure out like they Guillermo really wanted to feel like sort of this kind of inside of a watch and a lot of gears, and he wasn't quite sure, but he's like, yeah, gears are fucking cool, that's because he's very excitable, and he gets you excited,
Wow, that's good.
and so it was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And then so I would just draw this stuff, on top of stuff on top. I just kept drawing, gosh, kept drawing, and then next, and then more stuff, like you get into a little bit more of the details, and
Right, right, right.
how certain things fit with other things, and what kind of look, and not all this was really for us,
Yeah,
not for,
yeah.
like, we wouldn't ever show this to Guillermo. This was for us to figure out what it was, because back then we still had to figure out before going 3D, because 3D was still slow, right?
Right.
There's no GPU rendering. I mean, this was slow times. I mean,
Yeah.
slow computers. Everything was not fast. So,
But that gives you time to
figuring out on
think,
paper.
no? Yeah, that gives you
Yeah.
time to think, no? So you're not in
Yeah,
such a rush.
but yeah, but you had to think this way and all, because if you don't, then like, you can't just build it, and it'll just take more time. So it was just faster to draw it.
Yeah.
Next, if you can. So this is an example of the hammers. I did at least over 100 silhouettes
Wow.
of what this hammer could be, and then I took it one more step, and chose the ones that we liked, and then I did one final, which is the one, the drawing on the left is the final drawing and marker, and then on the right is the actual frame from the shot,
Yeah.
from the movie, which is basically exactly
Yeah.
what I drew. And that's why it's like, there was no like since we were such a team of people who were just kind of figuring this out, there were no, like, there was no like big egos, and like established political hierarchy or any of that. It was just like everybody wanted to just get this done as good as possible, and everybody was helping everybody out. There was no like, there's none of that. It was just like, let's just get this done as good as we can. It was like, like I said, it just felt like guerrilla filmmaking. Just let's get it done. Come on, let's do it. And it was just full of passion. So, a summer of this, me learning how to draw, like, here at least I could start. I mean, I didn't completely not know how to draw, but compared to Paul and Ruben and some of the real artists there, they could draw circles around me.
Yeah.
But thank goodness they helped me out, because my capacity, for some one reason or another, I got lucky because I was charged with design.
Yeah.
So I got lucky in that sense, and maybe that's because I come from a design background. So I could work a lot of things out. So then after we figured out kind of all this stuff, all this gears and all that, and we had hired other people to freelance, like Mark Cabana, to come in and help us with some drawing and design as well. But after we had done all the design, like, okay, it feels good to us. So now let's do sort of the keyframes. And so we did keyframes. And if you go next frame, please. So this was a very early sort of keyframe that I did. And a funny story here is, we had been submitting stuff that hadn't been getting approved, especially my stuff. And I was just like, all right, this is embarrassing, man, and I can't have this. And I didn't, I wanted, I was afraid that I wasn't doing a good job. So what I did was I bought Blade 2, and I went and listened to the commentary that Guillermo was talking about. Talks about the palette that he likes. It talks about the aesthetics that he likes. It talks about his inspirations, and it talks about all this stuff. So I would look it all up, and then I just put it all in here, the palette, and then I put the some of his inspirations and the artists that he had liked, and I put those things in there, and then guess what? Got approved.
Nice.
And this is the only thing, one of the only things that actually made it to the Art of Hellboy book.
Okay.
And he really, I guess they really responded to this, and so this was sort of the after culmination of a whole bunch of keyframes, but it was because of me doing that amount of research that enabled me to create this, and it really it kind of boosted me a lot, because I was just like, oh man, finally. Because you don't know, before this it was like painting after painting that wasn't approved. No, not really. No, you send it to Guillermo, and then it takes time to come back, and they're like, oh no, not really. And we were all scratching our heads going, what should we do, because there was nothing getting approved. And I think at some point people were going, we don't know what to do. So we just keep throwing things at them, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully something to stick. So I went and did this, listened to the commentary, and and then I also got a little lucky. But I mean, they said, great, this is the right direction. But then we just kind of more drawing, and you'll see later, how some of these, I mean, this is the bones of it. And, things changed, but this is the bones of it. So if you can forward it, please. So now we're really getting, okay, all the drawings have been done. If you look at some of the shapes around here, you could see that that's coming from the drawing. But now it's just how, this is a concept frame that I put together for the lighting and how spatially it should go.
But it's still a concept. That's not a matte painting, is it?
Yeah, this is a concept. So so some of the guys who did the models, they because we were working together, so it was a lot of me working with modelers and texture painters and everybody and compositors, and we were all just working together trying to make this really cool product. I was like, okay, why don't you just send me a frame real quick? And they sent me a frame, and then I would just kind of try to make it like, oh, it should go really deep down like that, and you want some rays of light here and there and stuff like that. And I turned, it was really fun for me. And I would do this till like 9, 10 at night. Nice. Not because they asked me, but just because it was so damn, fun. And so, at this point, it wasn't even matte painting yet. It was really just trying to figure out, okay, what are you doing? What is this space we're doing? And then we'd send that along, and then, okay, yeah, looking good, this sequence started to be sort of, okay, it's pretty straightforward now. We know where to go with this. And next, please. So then this is like looking up. So this is, when everything falls down, that's the bridge that they cross. And what does the ceiling look like? What does the architecture look like there? So all this is now being just built from the drawings and the interpretations, and the modelers there. It was great. I mean, I remember working with Stan. He's awesome model. I mean, he would just take the drawings and go, okay, I understand, and then model it. So he was awesome. Nice. Next, please. And so this is, this is the shot where they look at, oh my God, the hammer just killed the thing, and then they're like looking down, and that's why you see that down shot. That's like them looking down. Next, please. And then,
Okay.
so this is the final matte painting. So you saw the original sort of
Yeah.
keyframe, and then this is the final matte painting. And
That you
so
did.
I did, and I got to go like from drawing all the way to here. This is the final matte painting of the establishing shot of the bridge.
Right.
Um, and the cool part about this is at that, like a little bit before these shots were being done, they had hired a really old school matte painter named Mike Pangrazio. And he was, used to paint on glass, and he did
Oh yeah.
he did the Raiders of the Lost Ark, that
Oh.
warehouse scene.
Oh my
So
God.
he's responsible for he's like, well, he's just an awesome matte painter, and he basically mentored me there. I mean, don't forget, this is my first ever matte painting show. So,
Nice.
and it
I
was
mean, it
because
looks super professional, right? I mean, I would never have guessed that this is your first job.
yeah, but I mean, that's why a lot of this, like coming from the drawing to the keyframe to here, it was all a lot of help from
Yeah,
everybody
of
around
course,
me.
of course.
And it was because of that this was possible, because I still remember, like, if you look at the part on the right hand side of the frame where the highlight is, with the with the arch,
Yeah.
uh, I I had the hardest time to make it look real. Because that's just paint, right? I mean, it's a basic 3D model arch, and then you have to paint on top of it, and it was camera projected. And the thing is, I couldn't get it to look real, and Mike was helping me with that and teaching me basically how to randomize something, that you never repeat certain shapes, and how to do that. And it was just so eye-opening. And at that time, it wasn't, it was all paint. It's just Photoshop,
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, 16 years ago, I mean, there was projection mapping was still kind of new. So, and just the skills that he brought in, just like, oh, every shape you do, you want to do a different shape, circle, square, triangle, like always different. Never use the same thing and use a different brush, all these, sort of tips, and in the end, yeah, it looks right, and it's all due to him helping me, so you never quite do it alone. And at the orphanage, it really taught me, the value of teamwork, and the fact that, if you all, because everybody, including the owner, wanted to, it was their first show, really wanted
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make it the best thing possible,
Yeah.
so so we were all just all in this together, and trying to make the best product possible.
Right.
And for me, I was so excited. I didn't know what I had been thrown into. I didn't know, concept, but I was like, oh, I love this, And the drawing part, I was like, yeah, I'm not the best draftsman, but I loved coming up with the idea, the whole environment. I loved thinking about it, and what could it be? How could it be? And I love working with other people we all gave each other ideas, and we would all draw, and then, oh, hey, that looks cool. Let me put some of that in mine, and he would take mine and put some of that in his. It was just fun, Um, so yeah, so that was awesome. So next, please. Okay, so this is just more examples of some of the things that I was responsible for, which is this is just the light bolt coming through
Right.
the clouds, and for me, I had never done anything like this. Again, this is my first show, so
It's like a VFX
Brian.
concept, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was a VFX concept. I was like, how do you paint clouds?
Oh yeah.
And I had no idea how to do that. And so Brian said, well, why don't we use the old trick that we used to do in matte painting, which is take some like pillow stuffing, which is Dacron,
Oh.
and light it. and as clouds. So I did that, and I was like, oh damn, okay. So I learned a new trick.
We all
But
did.
at that time I was still very green. But like I said, I was so in love with the fact that I was creating something for a film,
Right.
and that was just amazing to me. So next, please. So you get a lot of these. So we have to figure out what Hellboy's horn looks like when he goes full Satan, and so we didn't know. And I did like another like this kind of visual effect stuff. I did like maybe, I don't know, something around 50
Yep.
versions,
Yep.
of different. You know what
Yeah.
that is, right? Yeah. Making it feel like it's like lit from within, lit from the outside, all this kind of stuff. But in the end, they kind of really liked this one, and I liked it too. And so yeah, this was another part of what I did, and I was really, I actually really like doing this because this is a lot of fun. To add in that look, and I was really getting into the character because I actually really like the
Ah,
comics.
okay.
I think the comics are genius. I love them. Next,
Sorry,
please.
did you get a plate for this one of the actor?
Yeah, so
Okay.
I got just a plate that was like really flatly lit, and it wasn't lit with like the horn light or
Yeah,
anything.
yeah.
I just kind of painted that
Ah,
in.
okay.
So it was really flat to begin with. Okay, next, yeah, and then the next three is basically a sequence of the moon becoming, you can just say like
Ah,
it being
okay.
shot with that, and it becomes that thing. So these are some of the things that I did on the movie, and for me it was sort of one of the best experiences ever, because not only because I got to do something that was sort of you were given your freedom to do, uh, but also the teamwork where we felt like we were creating something that everybody was passionate about, because we were all excited. It was
Yeah.
all a lot of people's first time, so we were like, let's do this. Let's do this right. Um, and then one of the biggest things is the people that I interact with and that I met were are artists that to this day I still talk to and work with. So today I just had a call with Mike, which was the compositor on a lot of these shots. I just had a call with him today. Um, you know, I've been working with the owner, Jonathan. We worked together. He hired me for like Deadpool and other
Oh, okay.
movies.
Yeah, that goes a long
He
way.
became a client side supervisor, so he's hired me for a lot of jobs.
Nice.
And I worked with Kevin Bailey, who subsequently went to form Atomic Fiction, which is now bought by Method. So he's hired me, as recently as last year, to work on some of that stuff, and not just to work on that stuff, but we're friends.
Exactly right.
And we care about each other as much as you can now. But I mean, it's like because everybody's got a lot of things going on, but he really looks out for me when there's work, and we're in each other's lives to a certain extent, and we really like working with each other. Same with Ryan, who is the other owner of Atomic Fiction. We love each other's work. We love to work with each other. So they hired me for the Game of Thrones stuff.
Ah, okay.
It's just like all these relationships come back, and it doesn't have to always be that they come back to hire
Yeah,
you,
yeah, yeah.
but they come back like today I was talking to Mike, and everybody is just here to help everybody else, because we remember the good times we had, and we really got along. And a lot, you never know who you work with and where they end up,
That's
because they
true.
could
Yeah.
really end up being your next, they could you guys could work together again. um, and I, everybody's gone on to work and have their careers. And I got a call on Alien Covenant
Right, right.
with Christian. Is he's at Frame Store, and he's like, hey, I remember your work from the orphanage.
10 years ago, 15 years
Let's work
ago.
together.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, it's like so for me, that's why it's been this is the perfect project because of the people I met, because of the passion that everyone
Right.
had. It was like a bunch of young guys and men and women. That's the other thing because it was a pretty VFX is was sort of very men centric, but I was surprised because there, even in my room, I was already working with like 4 or 5 women. I mean, it was like half,
Wow. Okay.
and it was quite amazing.
Yeah, that's rare.
And everybody were super nice, just couldn't be nicer. And it was just the best time ever. And this was 16 years ago. I mean, to this day, like the only other experience that that's equivalent was Matrix,
Ah, right.
and I can't show anything from that. But I've
Not
talked
yet.
about why. Yeah, if I start showing now, I'll be fine.
Yeah, that's going to be taken down so quickly you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, no more podcast, no more career for
Yep.
me. But the truth of it is, Matrix was because of the people as well.
We'll do
So
a
in the end, the people I think is really what makes the experience awesome.
yeah, same
And
for me, right?
you know,
Same story for me.
yeah, absolutely. So I think if there's one thing you can glean from this is just work with the right people if you can, and sometimes you will be lucky and get into some projects that kind of propel you. But I mean, I worked hard on Hellboy.
Yeah.
Like I worked my butt off, and that was the only way I could attain that skill within, like, say, I think what was it, half a year. I went from like an apprentice matte painter basically to being able to do that shot. And the only way I could have done that shot was not only with right help, but because it was a small company. Like everybody was busy, so you get to do that establishing shot. How often does that happen? Never.
Yep. That is true.
So, if anybody is thinking of taking a chance on a small company, that this is actually a really good thing. These are the benefits of that. But the other flip side is the hard work and maybe disorganization and long hours.
That's
But
true.
I was down for it. 16 years ago, I was like, give it.
Yeah.
I can do it.
That is true.
So yeah, that's my story.
Nice. I think we
Yeah.
came to
Anyway.
I think we came to the same conclusion, sort of, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And that's
Yeah.
really the key. And it's hard though because that doesn't happen very often. That you hit the jackpot and that case, right? I mean, you have that story about Hellboy like 16, 17 years ago, and then the Matrix again. I mean, like right now, or a couple of months ago. But I mean, it doesn't mean that everything is always like terrible. But I think these supremely positive, life-changing events, they don't come around that often. But yeah, it's
and cherish it when
yeah,
they do.
and be
do,
prepared, right? Be prepared, and I mean, it's cool. It's a really, I think a really really nice, uplifting, positive story, right? We're quick to complain about everything, but it's good to remember.
We don't complain.
No, right? We're always happy.
No, but being positive, yeah. I mean, and I think being. I mean, these were things that really, because even just talking about it and preparing the images for me gave me a smile
Right.
and a lot of boost. Or I don't know about you.
Yeah, of course. Like kind of looking back, I hadn't looked at the pictures I took for a long time, so I have a lot more. So I just went through them and thought about, like, yeah, there was some good times about when we were back there. I mean, the trip more than anything was quite memorable, of course. But yeah, also, and just thinking about how the people I met on that show, I just had a call with one of them, and I'm working with the other one again, and it's I don't know, it's good memories. And it's always, because we're so busy, right? And you kind of get distracted from all the news in the world, and everything's terrible, and you're so caught up in the day-to-day rhythm of your life that you kind of forget about all these good things. And I don't know, maybe you guys can think about your good experiences, and maybe you can even share them with us in the comments about stuff that really resonated with you and why, and maybe even reach out to the people that you worked with on some really cool projects and reconnect, right? Because that's very
great,
important, right? And again, like what you said was very true about, like when you reconnect, it's not always about just like, oh, hey, do you have any jobs for me, right? It's the wrong way of going about it. Just I think it makes a person's day if you just reach out to them once in a while, not for any special occasion, but just to reconnect, just to check like, how are you doing, right? And that means a lot. I mean, I know it means a lot to me when people do that. So I think that's a great way of wrapping up this episode. And again, if you guys have any stories of your own to share, please do so in the comments. And as usual, we're open to new suggestions. If you enjoyed this, then you can like and comment and subscribe to our channel on all the various platforms we are. And thank you so much for tuning in. Stay safe, and see you guys in the next one.
Next time.